Okay, hello everyone, welcome back to this tutorial. We are in part 10 of our tutorial, and in this tutorial we want to know how can we use OTP RTOS in STM32 cube ID. Like before, it's not important, but in this part I want to talk about Mutex or Mutex or mutual exclusion. It's not important what's the name, the concept is important. You can say whatever you want, okay, whatever you would like. It's not important what's name. I say that Mutex because it's easier. It's the easiest pronunciation, but it's not important. What is Mutex? The question is, what is Mutex? Mutex is a locking mechanism like semaphore. So easy. This part is so easy. Locking mechanisms like semaphore. But what is the differences between semaphore and Mutex? The Mutex count, the maximum count of Mutex always is 1. You can't have count greater than 1. Mutex has 2 conditions, unlock or lock. Okay, so the maximum count is 1. You can't have the Mutex, for example, with Mutex count 5 with 5 in Mutex count. Okay, so this is the first difference. The next, Mutex has owner. What is the owner? The thread that locks it. Okay, and just owner will be able to unlock the Mutex. It's the last difference. But to describe what is the Mutex, showing an example is the best way. Go to the STM32 cube ID. Like before, I have 2 threads, but at this time thread 1 priority is high, but thread 2 priority is normal. Okay, like before, I have a semaphore ID, semaphore 1, but at this time the initial value is 0. After starting the RTOS, the semaphore has been locked initially. Okay, and if you want to create a semaphore, a Mutex like semaphore, you need an ID. At this time, Mutex ID underscore T and the name of your Mutex, the name of the variable. Okay, to create a Mutex like semaphore, you can use Mutex create new. You must give a name. You can't give the max count because the max count is in Mutex is 1. And if you don't know what's the difference between single shot type or recursive type in Mutex, put this value here. Mutex type single shot. Always put this value here. Okay, but if you know what is the differences between single shot and recursive in Mutex type, I must say my implementation is not completely single shot. It's an implementation between single shot and recursive, but in future updates I will implement single shot type and recursive type completely. So if you don't know what's the difference between single shot type and recursive type, just put this value here. In next updates, I will implement single shot and recursive completely and start the RTOS. Now let's see the code. In thread function 1, first define this variable as a status, RTOS, status underscore T. Okay, and the name of variable is status. First, get the Mutex in thread function 1, in thread 1, like semaphore. give the ID of the mutex and a timeout, completely like semaphore, and put the status, put the return value in this variable. Now the owner of this mutex is thread 1 because has been gotten by thread 1. After that, I want to get semaphore, but as you can see, the initial value is 0. If I run this line, the operating system immediately jump to thread function 2 and put this semaphore for 500, put this thread for 500 milliseconds in wait list. But let's debug the project and run the code. That's the better than talking about that. Okay, now I'm in debug mode. Jump to the thread function 1. First, I want to get the mutex because mutex after RTOS start is unlocked. The status is okay. Okay, the status is okay. But if I want to get the semaphore, I can. The thread 1 will not be able to get this semaphore because the initial value is 0. And if I run this line, immediate the operating system jump to thread function 2 and put thread 1 in wait state for 500 milliseconds. Now I want to release the mutex in thread 2. I said here just owner will be able to unlock the mutex. The owner of mutex is thread function 1. If I run mutex release here, the status will be status error resource. Thread 2 will not be able, can't get the resource. It can't release the resource. You will have an error in the status. Now I want to release the semaphore, and we know thread 1 with higher priority waited for this semaphore. If I release the semaphore, operating system immediately jump to thread function 2. Immediately jump here and status is okay. This is the return value of this function. The status is okay. Now I can release the mutex in thread function 1 because the owner of mutex is thread 1. If I release that, another time the status is okay. So the maximum count is always 1. Mutex has owner. Just the owner will be able to unlock the mutex. Now let's stop the project. Delete this semaphore. Comment this semaphore here. Rebuild the project. And another time debug the project. Okay, now another time run the code. Another time get the mutex. Status is okay, like before. Get the semaphore. Another time put the thread 1 in wait state and jump to thread function 2. But at this time I don't want to release the semaphore. if I run Mutex release, you know the return value will be error, but will not return to thread function 1 because I don't release semaphore 1, and thread 1 should be have to remain in wait state for 500 milliseconds. If I run the code after 500 milliseconds, another time RTOS jump to thread function 1 because thread function 1 has higher priority. But the status is error timeout. Okay? If you open in RTOS in source kernel.c, here you can find some information about RTOS in this variable. You can see the value of teach is 500. This means this time has elapsed. 500 milliseconds has elapsed. This time has elapsed, and RTOS return thread 1 to the ready list, but the status is not okay. Status is error timeout. Okay, so, and after that, another time thread 1 can release the Mutex because thread 1 is the owner, and always run this while loop and doesn't jump to thread function 2 because thread function 1 has higher priority. If I run that and stop that, stop in thread function 1. So this was a complete, probably almost a complete example about Mutex, semaphore, thread priority, and other things. Okay, now you can use the operating system in your projects. That was the Mutex. But in the next part, I will say you how you can release a semaphore or get a semaphore from interrupt. Okay? You will not be able to get or release a Mutex from interrupt, but you can release and get a semaphore from interrupt. I will say you some information in the next part. Okay. Thank you very much to see me, and see you soon in the next part.